We are on the cusp of a brand new iPad Pro that is poised to change the way that we know and use the device today. Now, I thought it was no better time to look back at the M2 iPad Pro that I've used for the past 18 months to answer the dilemma, is it worth upgrading to the M3 iPad Pro? Let's get started. Now, the purpose of today's video is threefold. First, I want to provide you an overview of the M2 iPad Pro. What features does it have at high level? What capabilities does it have? I'm not going to go into a lot of the speeds and feeds that you see from the initial review, because really I'd be just regurgitating things I talked about previously that does you and I no good. Second, I want to tell you why you might choose the M2 iPad Pro versus other iPads that are in the lineup today. When you compare them, what features do they have against each other, and where does one excel versus the other? Third, why you actually might want to choose to wait for the M3 iPad Pro based on some of the features that it is rumored to have. We have a new iPad Pro coming out in maybe about a week now when you're watching this, and there might be reasons why you might want to wait buying the iPad Pro, or maybe you might want to save some money and buy the M2 iPad Pro just immediately if those use cases are not relevant to you. Because we are in that weird time, once Apple releases an iPad Pro, there will be some discounts on the older devices. First, let's start with that overview. The M2 iPad Pro was released in October 2022, about 18 months after the M1 was released in April 2021, and that's the cycle that we're on today, where we get a new iPad Pro about every 18 months. Now, the device was an iterative update over the M1, but added a few additional, I would say, capabilities that were not in the M1 iPad Pro that, depending on what your use cases were, really would improve the functionality of your iPad Pro. You're still getting the same display in each the 11-inch and the 12.9-inch. You're getting the same Liquid Retina XDR display in the 12.9-inch. It's also capable of hitting 1000 nits full screen brightness or 1600 nits of HDR brightness, but largely everything else was the same. And when Apple released the new iPad Pro in October 2022, it did make a few slight changes. Specifically, the M2 iPad Pro added 2 additional GPU cores for GPU-intensive tasks, making your device a little bit more robust and a little bit more performant when performing certain tasks. Video editing, which we saw with release of Final Cut Pro, maybe more pro apps like Logic Pro. It also added Wi-Fi 6E in addition to Apple Pencil Hover, the ability to use your Apple Pencil and trace where your Apple Pencil's location is in space related to the display of the iPad, and then also added a dedicated ProRes encode engine. Now, these are all features which, depending on what you were doing, those things may or may not have benefited you. Again, it was largely the same from the 2018 to the 2020, 2021, 2022 iPad. So there wasn't a lot of reason, if you owned an older iPad that shared the same design language, why you would upgrade. And I honestly don't blame you. Now, if you are enjoying today's video like I think you are, because I love the iPad, you clearly love the iPad, consider hitting like on this video. And if you want to help me out just a little bit more, click on subscribe, because I want to get the channel to 50,000 subscribers before the end of the year, and you are an essential part of that. Now, more iPad Pro. At its core, there are 2 capabilities, in my opinion, that really separate the 11-inch and the 12.9-inch M2 iPad Pro from any other device in the lineup. First, it's the power of the M2. It's the raw performance that you're able to get with the chipset that allows you really to more closely bridge the gap to an actual desktop replacement on your iPad than any other device in the lineup. And when you couple that with the extensibility of the Magic Keyboard and also the Apple Pencil, you get that true laptop replacement, which is not just quite feasible with any other device. Now, you might be asking yourself, why would I want to choose the iPad Pro, whether it's M1, M2, M3, over the iPad Air or over the iPad 10th generation? Well, there are several reasons why you want to go ahead and choose the iPad Pro over all those devices. First and foremost, it's going to be the fast refresh rate display that's on the iPad Pro. It's only found on the iPad Pro. It gives you a fast refresh rate where it's basically updating 120 times per second, where you don't get that on the iPad Air or the iPad 10th generation, where it only does it 60 times per second. Now you might be thinking to yourself, hey, why does it even matter to me? If you're doing any type of content creation with drawing, modeling, graphics, this is where it's going to make a difference. If you're gaming, consuming movies, this is where you'll see the most impact from that. That, and if you choose the 12.9-inch, which I think in retrospect, I think a lot of people do, because the differences between the 11-inch and the 12.9-inch is just so pronounced that you're getting the benefit of a bigger display, a brighter display, one that's HDR capable, hitting 1000 nits of brightness for full screen content, 1600 nits of brightness in HDR content, where that will benefit you as well. In addition to, you're also getting better performance for a subset of use cases with the 2 additional GPU cores, Apple Pencil Hover, and the addition of a dedicated ProRes encode engine. Plus, you're getting a superior multitasking experience With the 12.9-inch iPad, because of the additional screen real estate, you can see more on the screen itself when you are multitasking. You get better screen density with the ability to scale up and down screen density based on the M2 processor compared to the M1 iPad Air. And then you're getting faster data throughput with the addition of the Thunderbolt port that is on the M2 and M1 iPad Pro, but it's not on the M1 iPad Air. Now, with all those reasons to choose the M2 iPad Pro, there are a number of things that you want to go ahead and maybe just wait a little bit longer if you could, maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, because the M3 iPad Pro is supposed to deliver and push the boundaries even further on the next iPad Pro. First, if you want to get a better gaming experience, you have the addition of dedicated hardware-based ray tracing, allowing you to play in games that are more immersive, more lifelike, more realistic on the iPad Pro. And that's actually one of the use cases I think that the iPad Pro just really excels at, is gaming in general, because of the display, because of the fast refresh rate, and because of really the catalog that games offer. Second, the iPad Pro has an 11-inch and a 12.9-inch configuration today, and tomorrow it's supposed to be a slightly larger 13-inch configuration, whether it's 13.1, 13.2, 13.3, doesn't really matter. They're going to be able to do that by decreasing the bezel size around the iPad because they're going to an OLED display technology in the next iPad Pro. It's really unclear whether that's going to apply to the 11-inch and the 12.9-inch. I hope it's both, because I do love my 12.9-inch, but really I love it for the display. I love to go down to a little bit smaller of an iPad. OLED will give you, darker darks, better contrast, better whites. It should give you better battery performance. It should be a better overall experience, and also allow you to get a always-on display on the iPad, much like they have on the iPhone today. The Apple Watch, the Apple iPhone 15 Pro is also OLED, and I think the iPhone 15 as well. But they'll be able to do that and give you a much better response. I hope they improve the backlight and the energy consumption on the iPad Pro. That's probably one of the biggest complaints that I have, which I'll cover in my M2 iPad Pro final review. If you want to see that, make sure you're subscribed. Now, we talked about the screen. Let's talk about the different memory configurations. Today, it's available from 128 to 2 terabytes, and we expect probably the same thing tomorrow. If they start with 256, I would be surprised that they're going to give that much storage and not have a price adjustment account for that. Second, we should see RAM configurations at 8 and 16 gigs of RAM, but those RAM configurations are not configurable based on whatever you want. They are tied to the different storage sizes. So if you have a 128, 256, or 512, you're going to get 8 gigs. And if you have a 1 terabyte or a 2 terabyte, you're going to get 16 gigs. First tip I would tell you is that if you are looking to get better performance, don't necessarily go to the larger size storage configurations with the bigger RAM, because you might not be able to realize that performance in that. You really got to check with the developer and see what they are doing in terms of optimization for that RAM and the application. It's really just kind of a ploy for you to spend more money, and I would just be careful with spending that money. Because you don't necessarily see the best performance out of that device if you choose 16 gigs of RAM. I would say that's probably not money well spent. Third, we should see that there is Find My support for the Apple Pencil, which is a feature that I would love to see, because I lose my Apple Pencil probably once a week. My kid takes it and puts it somewhere, and then he tries to hide it from me, never tells me where it is. But I would love to have Find My support for my Apple Pencil, because I've bought 2 of them now. Next, we expect Apple to move the portrait camera from the left side of the iPad to the top center, really giving you a better overall FaceTime experience, camera experience, making it a little bit more pleasure to use. Now, with the camera being moved, like here you have the iPad logo, right? And you have the camera up top. I wonder if they're actually going to place this sideways so you can actually view it that way. That will be really interesting if they do. One of the things that I'm looking forward to. In addition to a new Magic Keyboard that is an aluminum tray bottom with a much larger trackpad for more of a computer replacement-like experience. Now, I am super excited about the new M3 iPad Pro, which we should see in a few days. Let me know how excited you are down in the comments below, because if you made it this far, I want you to drop down a shamrock emoji in the comments to let me know that you are excited about the iPad Pro. Let me know what questions you have down in the comments below, and make sure you are subscribed for that full iPad coverage. My name is Mike, and I'll talk to you in the next one.